Oh. Hey everybody, welcome to Super Bowl Sunday. I think I'm more depressed today about the Chiefs not being in this game than I was 2 weeks ago when they actually suffered that humiliating loss. So sometimes when I'm feeling down and feeling upset, I have to take some time and think about things that make me happy. Some of those things that make me really happy are my family, of course. I love sports. I love my Kansas City Chiefs. Oh well, season's over, but hey, guess what? Royals baseball's just around the corner. Hey everybody, today I want to talk about things that make me happy. You know, I already talked about the family, talked about sports and stuff, but I really have this thing for plants. I love plants, and I love making YouTube videos. So I invite you to subscribe to the channel, and today we're gonna talk about my indoor plants. So I'm growing some ficus trees and some lemon trees. And because it's winter here in central Kansas, all those trees have to live indoors. And it's kind of a struggle to keep them alive, keep them hydrated and all that. So today I'm gonna show you my ficus trees and my lemon trees, tell you just a little bit about them, show you how I water them real fast, and then we're gonna dip them in some water to get them hydrated through the end of the week. So at this time, please hit the subscribe button and we'll get started. Here's the first ficus I wanna show you. This tree was a air layer from a gift I had received for my birthday one year, and because it was one of those mail order ficus trees, it had one of those real traditional mail order deep S bends in it, and I wanted to improve the shape of that tree, so I took an air layer off of it, and this is the result. You can see that I've got a really nice nabari going on there. This tree is really sensitive to being moved around, so whenever I bring it in for the winter or have to move it to a new location, it tends to drop all of its leaves. And this year it's had a real struggle leafing out again, but thankfully you can see that it is starting to leaf again. I've had to cut, I have cut some dead off of it already, and once this tree starts growing vigorously again, probably not until I can get it outside this spring, will I want to do any more cutting of removing some of the dead. So my main goal right now, there's pretty good roots in the pot. My main goal is to get this tree healthy and vigorous again, and once that happens, I can start pruning it back and start trying to build some structure. The next ficus that we're going to look at, this is the ficus I just showed you. Last year, the tree was growing very vigorously, doing very well, and as I was trimming it, I decided to root a couple of the prunings in water. This rooted very well in water, and once it had a pretty good looking root system in the jar, I then transferred it into this plastic pot. And the roots weren't thick enough or stout enough to wire the tree into the pot. So once I put it in, I placed these rocks on top of it, and the tree is now fairly stable in this pot. So I'll let it go ahead and grow out again, probably another year before I pull it out and do another root prune on it. So for right now, I am just simply letting this tree grow. Last January, my sister-in-law and I did a video on ficus rescue. I'll put a link here for it. But this is one of those trees. We decided on a cold January day to go to the garden center just to get out of the house, and we found a couple ficus trees that looked in pretty poor condition. And so we thought, why not buy them and see if we couldn't rescue them, see if we couldn't rehabilitate them and get them growing. So this is just from the summer after we repotted it. I'm going to continue to let the container fill with roots. Once we get a new root system really established under here, then we will start worrying about trying to grow a structure on this plant. So check out that video. And while I'm got it here, this was also featured in that video from the rescue out of a garden center. This tree did lose its top, so I did cut that off. But this is the same story as the other plant. We are going to let the container fill with roots before we get in there and prune it again. And for now, we're just letting this plant grow. And so here's a lemon tree, and I love the story on this. I had a plant that needed rehab, and I had a friend who had a greenhouse. And I asked if I could put the plant in the greenhouse for the winter for that purpose of rehabbing the plant. And she said I could. So Amelia and I took the plant over to the greenhouse, and while we were there, we were admiring her large lemon tree that was full of lemons. It was probably in January or February. And so she picked a couple lemons, gave them to us, and once we brought them home, we pulled those seeds out of there and sprouted this tree. That was probably 3 or 4 years ago now, probably. And then Nigel, if you're watching this video, all those questions I send about pruning the tropicals or having questions about that, it's usually this tree that I'm seeking advice on. This is one of those trees that I'm intimidated by. It obviously has some root problems down here that I need to deal with. And I think I just need to suck it up and either live with it or go ahead and get in there and do some work. Now, originally the soil line was up to here. So I think next time I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and get a little more aggressive on taking care of this root system. But part of the reason I'm intimidated by it is I just really don't want to lose this tree. This is also the tree that I really like whenever people come over to see the plants. I like to pick a leaf off of it, crush it up, and have them smell it and see if they can't identify what kind of tree it is. There's probably no need to look at every single tree. I've got another lemon here. Here's a lemon, another lemon here. These are just seeds that came out of organic lemons that I pulled out of the grocery store. They germinate really well. We like to pull the seeds out. Usually I wash them off and then fold them up into a damp paper towel and put them in like a Ziploc bag for a while. Usually it takes a couple weeks and then they'll sprout. And then from there, I'll move them into a pot, usually with some potting soil. And then after the first year of growing in the potting soil, I'll take them out and do the first root prune on them and then throw them into a container like this. So quick shout out to my wife. She got me this turntable for my birthday. So it is making its debut in a video. Okay, so here I am at the kitchen sink. I think the best way to water your plant to make sure that it has enough water to last it to the next watering, or to make sure you water it enough that you don't have to continuously be watering it with little tiny bits here and there, is to actually do the dunk method. Now with the dunk method, I fill my sink up with water and then I set the plant in there to where the water comes up through the bottom of the pot to the surface. Now with that, I'm making sure that all of the soil in there gets saturated. The next thing I'm gonna do is put a little bit of a very diluted fertilizer in here. Now this one's got a little nitrogen in it. I notice my plants are growing a little bit, so I'm gonna give it just a little tiny bit of fertilizer to go with it, a little bit of nitrogen. Usually in the wintertime when your plants are inside, you don't wanna give them too much. Some people don't give them any fertilizer at all through the wintertime. So one way to tell when your plant is ready to water, oftentimes these leaves are usually more turgid, they're standing more upright. If wiggle it around, you can see how kind of floppy they are. So I can tell that this plant is ready for some water. And about an hour after I water this, these leaves will be standing back up. So here's what I do. I take this plant and I set it down in the water. The water has come up through the bottom of the pot. So what I'm looking for now is to see if there's any air bubbles coming up out of the plant or out of the soil. And I don't see any. And at this point, I can pretty well determine that all of the soil in this container is probably now full of water. I think this is watered, so I pull it out. I'll let it drain. And then I'll set it over on the other side of the sink. And then I'll reach over and grab the next plant. And I'll set it in. And you can see the water coming up through the bottom. So we know that the container is full of water. So once the plant has had a moment to set in this side of the sink and drain out, I will then place it back into its tray that it normally sets in, and I will move it off to the side. Pull this plant out, set it in, and then continue on. So like I said, I think this method works good. It takes me about 45 minutes to water all my plants. I think this method works really good for all the rest of our plants, including our succulents. Sometimes people have trouble with getting enough water on the succulents or being afraid to water them since they don't like a lot of water. My opinion is you can give them a lot of water at one time, but the frequency at which you do that is a lot longer than a plant that uses a lot of water or likes that water. So the key is make sure you're getting your soil medium moist or wet, let it drain really well. And then depending on the needs of your plant, either extend that time that it gets to dry out some, or make sure you get water on it as soon as it needs it. So to wrap up this video, it's always great to have something in your life that brings you joy, whether it's plants or your favorite sports team. Plants bring so much joy, but yet there's a disappointment when you lose one or when your team loses. So tonight, there's a good chance that you might know somebody who's rooting for one of the two teams in the Super Bowl. Somebody's gonna lose tonight. If your friend or your team loses tonight, why don't you go out and get a plant? That always seems to make things better. And speaking of rooting for teams, just remember, in your bonsai hobby or your gardening hobby or whatever hobby you have going on, I'm rooting for you. So with that, please hit the subscribe button and take care.